Perfect. Hey guys, thanks for everybody who's jumping on. This is new, so I don't know how big of an audience we're going to have this first one, which is okay. All these will be recorded. You can go back and watch these on our YouTube channel. I think even on LinkedIn, some of our messages, I put the link to that in there, but we can definitely get that to you as you guys start to see some of the things we're doing. This is a series that we're hoping to kind of come up with our version of LinkedIn Live, podcast, whatever you want to call it. It's just our chance to be able to hopefully have some communication, some conversations with both people at Amtex, but probably more so with a lot of the customers we work with, the clients we have that we work with, partners we work with on a day-to-day basis, people who we know are doing some really neat things. The focus on this is going to be, and we call it data nerds and all the things that we're doing there, but how are people using data and analytics in their day-to-day jobs and really getting value from it? Anybody who knows me knows I talk about that all the time is, don't do just data analytics just for the sake of doing data analytics. You got to find where it's going to create value for your company. And sometimes that takes a step back to really see, okay, am I doing things that are creating value? What are the outcomes of this? Dinesh will talk a little bit about that in our subject today. But we're excited about this series. We're going to try to do these, I think, at least originally, hopefully twice a month with different guests. We've got, people lined up all the way from now to the end of the year already. Some really cool guests that we're excited to come on. I think Dinesh and I may even do another version of this one where we're doing more of live questions that come from things that we find on the internet and stuff. We'll still kind of work through that. But for today's session, what I wanted to do is have Dinesh on. Dinesh, for you guys who are not familiar with us and been to the webinars or anything else, Dinesh is our feelers leader for all things Amtex BI. That's all of our data analytics area and has worked here for almost 10 years now. Dinesh, I know we go back further than that from my time at Information Builders, but tons of experience in this area. He heads all of our teams that are delivering on these projects that we work on, working directly with clients. So the experience that he has on this is probably second to none. So we're super excited to have you on, Dinesh. And on today's topic is one that, everybody's probably heard a lot, but we're trying to kind of put this into the boundaries of data analytics. But today's topic is digital transformations. And again, we kind of titled it a data analyst or data and analytics view of that. So we want to kind of look at it from that perspective and kind of go into this again from a real world perspective. What does this mean for companies who are looking at, these fads and things that they want to do, and how does that really create value for them? Where do you find that value? So we'll kind of go back and forth just in a little bit of interview. Dinesh, it's great to have you on and looking forward to having the conversation.
Absolutely. It's great to be on, great to have these conversations in a new medium, Tim.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can share our experiences and mutually benefit, with the people that are on, as well as, if they need to reach out to us later, we're always here to have those conversations separately. Great to be on.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Dinesh. Like I said, we love this is our passion. That's why we kind of came up with the moniker of data nerds. This is something we truly are passionate about. So super excited to have this. So I think the first thing to do on any subject that we talk about is, make sure we have a deep understanding. Everybody, I'm sure, has by now heard of digital transformation, even if you're not really in the IT world. It's such a big term out there. But I want to kind of frame this, Dinesh, in a way that makes sense to the people we're looking, at having conversations with, the people who are probably on here or looking at this from a little bit different perspective. So can you kind of start off, and give us a little bit of a description of what digital transformation means to you, and then kind of talk about it a little bit as far as what that means from a data and analytics perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, there are just so many different definitions of digital transformation floating around.
Yeah.
So if you as an audience, if you're confused about it, just know that everybody had that confusion at one point in time, and still there's so many interpretations of this. But the more traditional definition of a digital transformation initiative started with like the process of changing how you as an enterprise engage with technology, how you leverage technology towards your business goals. Then it kind of a little more modern kind of definition became embrace new business models, essentially drive business models, convert business models in a way that it enhance all elements of your business: sales and marketing and operations and customer service and other applicable areas of your business. But my favorite definition of this is, of digital transformation would be an initiative that facilitates and enables a transparent organization. Now, what does that transparent organization mean? kind of leads into the why of this. So people focus a lot about what digital transformation without really understanding the why and what it means from a business goals perspective. So this needs to have some level of tangible definition of why you're trying to digitally transform, and we'll get into that in the later sections of this podcast as well. But in today's world, a study that I recently went through said 82% or customers that are looking out to do business with you know 82% of who you are before they even start engaging with your sales teams. That was shocking to me.
Yeah.
So they already know a lot about you. They've done their research, they've done their homework, which means your presence in the modern day world, whether it's in social media platforms, in the internet, in your
Mhm.
law, in your blogs and so on and so forth, have to align with who you are as an organization, what your strengths are, and it has to be speaking the message. So I think digital transformation is the tool that can get you to that point. So that's kind of my definition of what digital transformation is.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because it's everybody, if they are being transparent like us, we're doing the same thing. It's one of the reasons why we're having these conversations, because we want to be able to get out there and be transparent about some of the things that we are doing, the conversations we're having with clients, um, and getting to be more prevalent in those conversations with people. So obviously that is something that's big in everybody who is trying to get out there and continue to grow their business in those ways. So from a data perspective, though, I mean, I can imagine, as they're looking at these opportunities for digital transformation, what does that mean for them from a data perspective? And of course, analytics on the front end of it. But first, you have to start with the data, as far as how do you even enable the data that needs to be there to support these types of things.
Absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit about the opportunities that these kinds of initiatives present. And we'll also talk a little bit later about what do these some of these initiatives transform them, or what do these entail, how can you categorize them, and so on. But from an opportunity perspective, especially if in the world that we live in, Tim, you and I, it boils down into breaking down of silos,
Yeah,
and trying to get a connected ecosystem of systems that allow you to reach your business goals. So what does that mean? You have your different business units that collect data, that store data, but are not used in a way that all your other siloed systems are need to be using your customer data, for example, in a way that they can gain knowledge of an understanding of your customer, and use it to their advantage. So the connected ecosystem is one of the biggest opportunities from a data perspective of digital transformation. And then you talk about platforms that enable AI, platforms that enable ML, machine learning.
yeah,
So I say platforms, and I don't say, I don't say use the words applications here, because applications can get you to a certain point, but it still relies on IT to get you to the next step. So it's
yeah,
important that organizations embarking on these initiatives understand the value of platforms, creating self-scaling platforms, or at least easily scalable platforms in your new ecosystem. But all these are technology kind of opportunities, but the most important thing still remains the business objectives of this. So
yeah.
creating a digital presence, for example, of that would be creating a digital, which means online, mobile, social media presence in a way that it drives business outcomes, and technology is the vehicle that gets you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, going back to the transparency piece of it, when we talk about number one, the data, knowing, making that data available to people who need to have it and be able to see that on a transparent basis, but even allowing them, when you look at a digitally transformed application, to see analytics from it, whether it's like you said, kind of what's going on now in the business that they need to see, or or their interaction partnership with whoever that client or customer is, but also, being able to predict things and help them be able to understand things in the future. So when that's where, like you said, the ML and stuff comes into play. So love that. And I appreciate you kind of, when we talked about this from the very beginning, how do we kind of structure this, starting with the what, and talking about why and who and those type of things. I think we're kind of following that as we come through these questions. And I appreciate that, because that helps us frame up, why is this important to people, and who is it important to? So, um, beyond some of the obvious benefits that I know that we work with on an every day, what are some new opportunities? And you may have kind of touched on a few of these, but what are some new opportunities that you've seen, especially in data analytics, and you can even discuss some of the our real world examples that we've kind of worked through with our clients, and others that you've worked with as well to kind of help frame that.
Absolutely. So I think we've worked again, us as Amtex, just to give kind of set the stage for what Amtex has been doing. We've been working with our customers, building applications, building that life cycle of application support, and continued evolution into the transformed world. So we work with, retail, we work with financial services, healthcare, and not so we're pretty much agnostic with respect to domains. That said, so I'll touch on some of the digital transformation initiatives that we've helped our customers with. With financial services, for example, you've heard the term bankless banking. So you now know you now have banks that are almost entirely just digital. They do not
Yep.
have a brick and mortar building. They do not have ATM facilities. They do not have just teller kind of engagements with the people that are banking. So cardless payments and Apple Pay, and physical locationless bankless banking, embedded banking, which is automation of your entire payroll, your the invoice processes, your reconciliations. A lot of those things are things that we've worked on from a digital transformation
Yep.
perspective. What started as analytics then kind of moved into these cooler and modern
Hmm.
endpoints for the users. I think that's some of the powers of digital transformation themselves. And I can go on and on. Retail is, we've helped organizations with voice ordering and visual delivery services. Walmart's engaged with digital service, visual delivery services. You don't even need to go be at the store. You can just go online, look at the aisles of where they house their products, make a decision, have it delivered, that entire life cycle being seamless. So these are some of the initiatives that we are engaged in from an analytics perspective, from an AI perspective, an ML perspective. But all of these fall under the big umbrella of digital transformation.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think, I guess from my observation, some of the pandemic and some things that we went through there kind of helped accelerate that. I know it didn't start this. Digital transformation was something that had been there for a long time, but I noticed that maybe out of necessity that some of these things, especially like the bankless banking in those places where we couldn't go into stores like we normally did and couldn't do our normal interactions, it kind of accelerated the need for these types of technologies. And then I think, we've kind of held on to a lot of those. And there's, we've talked about this in some of our webinars. I remember we talked about an example, and some of it gets a little bit intrusive when you talk about how you include email and some of this stuff. But even in a superstore, walking around in the market and having it on your phone tell you, okay, you're on this aisle. These are something you may want to look at because it's on sale, whatever. Kind of gets a little bit creepy because you're like, wait, this thing is following me and knows where I'm at. But if the right use cases, this stuff is tremendous. And like I said, the data behind how this stuff works and has to work, the ability to be able to have that at a real time basis. I know we did a webinar back last year on some of the capabilities of real time data. I think that's where that example came from
Yep.
the supermarket, and
Right.
it's crazy how advanced this stuff is getting, but how it's changing our lives as well. I mean, the way we do things, and of course, that's not even getting into, and that maybe it's a super. I think another subject we may do as far as generative AI and some of that stuff. That's not, we don't even want to touch on that with this conversation, but a lot of this stuff really is. So I want to kind of move on for time's sake. When we talk about, obviously, what is digital transformation, why is it important? I think to me the next thing that I want to understand is, who is this for? I mean, I think everybody can kind of say, okay, Walmart and all these big large banks and all these large enterprises are doing this stuff. I see it in my apps and everything. But when you look at it from a small and mid market and other organizations, is this something that they should be looking at? Who is this stuff for?
So this is for everybody, right? And as cliched as that might sound, so I think the from a process standpoint, the first step towards this is just build out your digital journey. So what does that mean? Strategize what, like I said earlier, connect the dots between what your envisioned future state is, clearly capture what your current status from a data standpoint. There are problems that you might be solving today that might, that might continue to be solved, that needs to be continued to be solved, but still have that envisioned future state. And then from that point on, the um, next logical step would be an IT infrastructure enhancement. So
Yeah.
the logical next step would be to create the data lakes, to create the cloud ecosystem. And most importantly, people talk about cloud when it comes to digital transformation, but what they don't realize is, take doing a lift and shift approach of taking all your systems today that's on premises and moving into the cloud does not really transform you digital. It's about how you use the cloud for you to be efficiently, for you to take advantage of the cloud services, for you to scale up and scale down, and to achieve the objectives that you set out in your charter. It is extremely important for you to take advantage of the native services that the cloud offers you.
Yeah.
Only then can you create the platforms that, for your organization in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, and whatnot, and also give you a good, a kind of a roadmap in terms of total cost of ownership. What does this buy you, and how much am
Mhm.
I gaining from this? So there needs to be a constant monitoring of these processes and constant kind of evaluation of where you started with and where you are.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we also, I know we do a lot of work with clients at the beginning and saying, okay, let us taking the steps of, let us identify where the opportunities are for transformation in your data analytics applications and the things that you're doing. And then let us understand where the value is without the outcomes and then put a value with that. But I think what you're saying takes that even a step further was not just are we deciding up front, these are the things we need to do and making a plan for that. We're monitoring that along the way, which again is another internal analytics application for your own self.
Yes,
What types of KPIs, what type of metrics are you using to measure, the success of your programs as after you implement those? I think that's great.
it is.
And I think another thing that you mentioned, and I want to key in on is, like the cloud, and which the cloud is not new either, but in the last few years, last decade, I guess, really come to be a lot more mainstream, and the ability for any kind of size companies to be able to use it has come up, and then of course other technologies along the way, and has really allowed some of these smaller businesses and mid-sized business to be able to compete from an infrastructure perspective where they hadn't been able to before because they didn't have people to run all their servers and all that, or even buy the servers in the first place. Now they can scale it to the right way they want to using cloud and other things that do that. I think that it's a huge benefit for this. And not even just that, and we hadn't really touched on, I think that's the next thing we want to jump into, but how are you finding the right people to manage this? So if you're a small and mid-sized business, you may not have a full staff of IT that can go out and implement these type of digital transformations. So, these days, again, we're in a market where there are people out there, even from a leadership perspective, that you can go and get a fractional CIO to join your business on a
Yep.
fractional basis. If you're a smaller mid market and you can't afford to have, your own full time in all parts, you can go out and you can use services like Amtech. So, from a skills perspective, building a team, how do you support this? What are your thoughts on today on how we actually kind of do that for maybe some of these small and mid-sized companies who can't have their big, large IT groups?
Absolutely. Before I answer that, something that you brought up earlier was very interesting to me. You said that's an internal app. If you need to
Yep.
monitor this, that's an internal app, and that, again, touches on why digital transformation gives you benefits that you didn't really chalk out in your charter, for example. So, and these internal apps that you talk about are available natively. There's just so much analytics available natively. So in the 10 years from 10 years before today, all of these were apps that a developer or a group of developers had to sit down and construct from scratch, which means that entire SDLC process of gathering requirements and understanding the whys and then looking at the data systems, those are just available natively. And it becomes a sometimes not even a power user, sometimes it's just an end user, and say, this is what I want to know. I want to know how much I used last year. I want to know how much how much resources I spent in the last 3 months. And it's not an act of building an app anymore. It's just available to you. So I think making use of these native cloud features, cloud functions, is what allows you to focus on your business, which means the app construction time can go into something that can benefit the business in the long run. Sorry, I had to kind of
No,
get
it's
that
great.
in.
It's absolutely great. Yeah.
From a skills perspective, I would look at it as, two sections. One is kind of a strategy formulation. um, it's important for enterprises to spend as much time on this as possible. So I think this is where your biggest failure points lie. And people just say, okay, we're going to transform ourselves, digitally transform ourselves, whatever that means, or bring AI into the picture, not really think that entire process through.
Yeah.
And that starts with you, the organization. And so, because your business most, your subject matter experts, your business strategists, and so on. And then you can bring what I would call transformation consultants into the picture for a short amount of time, that can understand what you're trying to do, but can give you perspective on the tools, the options available, how are other customers benefiting from these options. Chances are, if you're looking at a problem, that problem's already been solved and been encountered and being weighed on. So that's where I think these transformation consultants, and those are specific to the kinds of initiatives that you are engaging with. And from an execution perspective, if you are getting into, for example, a cloud migration initiative, like I mentioned earlier, it's important to understand the total cost of ownership. And total cost of ownership is just such an umbrella word for a lot of different things. It actually, gets detail into why you're moving into the cloud, what is the cost of ownership today, what are some of the barriers for the move, and how you can effectively get there, and what, most importantly, what functionalities you're getting today that you might not with the cloud, with any kind of cloud provider that you go with. So understand, having that cloud expertise is critical to this, for this example. um, and then, m- again, as I alluded to previously, once you get to the cloud, that's only the starting point. It's important for you to do
Yeah.
everything natively within the cloud, which means that, if you're I'm going to take the example of an Azure world. If you have, if you're bringing your ETL pipelines into Azure and creating a data warehouse in Azure, make sure that your data models are as native to within the Azure ecosystem as possible. So if you need to spend some time now to iron out that repository, that enterprise data warehouse, that enterprise data model, you need to do that well now. And from that point on, we're really talking about customer experience professionals. We've had to work with, we have a lot of customer experience professionals on our side that really help you with respect to how your digital presence is conveyed best to the outside world. Capture your business goals and bring technology into it, and build out the best apps that your users can use. So I'd say broadly, that's kind of how I would lay it out. From a strategy perspective, the transformation consultant, from an execution perspective, could be a wide range of people. But if it's a cloud move, you're talking about cloud architecture and cloud subject matter experts, outside of the project managers and whatnot. And I'll have a whole other section about just what kind of project management skills are needed for this. But I don't think we will have enough time for this today.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I think it varies too. I mean, you look at, again, we're talking about, we've worked, well, like you said, from small, mid to even large enterprises on this stuff. It's going to vary from I think from person to person or from company to company as far as what their needs are there. But the great thing I think to me is that, again, we talked about this just a minute ago, is the flexibility is there. So maybe you kind of come up and you've already done the work on the front end to kind of understand where your opportunities lie, and these are the things that you want to do. So you just need someone to come in and kind of give you the who and the execution part of that. The pieces there to plug in as far as what you need to do, or maybe you haven't started that and you're the person who needs to understand where my opportunities lie. And so, or I need leadership for this. I need someone who can come in and lead this process, whatever that is. There's pieces that you can kind of plug in. We have a lot of fun being able to help people kind of understand where they're at on that journey and be able to plug the right pieces in or help them find that plan for that. So exciting times, like I said. I think the ability to be able to get those resources and get the right parts, the right technologies in place are there. And one thing I want to kind of touch on really quickly, and I won't ask. I think we guys actually had this as another question, but for time's sake, I want, we talked about the why do this, but the why not. And you mentioned this earlier. Um, So the why not for this stuff to me would be as simple as what you say when you're starting looking at TCO. What is my return on investment for this? What types of things can you not get? I'm sorry, I'm getting some weird thing on here. What types of things can you not do or do as far as total cost of ownership that don't provide you value? I think it's that simple. What does not provide you value on this? And if it doesn't, then there's no point in doing it. I think back to, you talked about bankless banks out there, but there's still a lot of brick and mortar banks who their key focus and their competitive advantages is their relationships with their credit union, their members, or their clients as a banker. There's different things that you can do from a digitalization standpoint to enhance those relationships, but it's going to be different from the bankless ones who are just trying to compete off of rates and things like that. So everybody's different, but the great thing is there's lots of ways to be able to kind of key into this. So I want to go kind of move on to the last one for time's sake. There are some comments and questions I haven't had a chance to read through, but I want to go through that real quick while you're answering this. But I think the last thing I want to touch on or kind of get your input on is, from your experience, like I said, you've worked in this for a long time, both just on general IT, but also from a data analytics perspective. What's one piece of advice that you would give for a business who's kind of struggling or hesitant to really dive into digital transformation?
So I'm going to, yeah, it's a great question. So I think the most important thing is design. If you're the one, one philosophical kind of piece of advice I would give is don't move on to the execution part of it until you're very clear what benefits you're going to get from this, what exactly the initiatives are, and how you're going to benefit from this, who's going to be involved on your side and externally. So, if you don't design something well, if you don't know the goals and objectives well, then the chances of failure are exponentially higher.
Yep.
So I would say that if I have to take one piece of advice, and I have a lot of pieces of advice, that Tim, but if I have to give one, if I had to think about one piece of advice, that would be it. If you're not happy with the whys and the hows, don't get into execution.
Yeah. Like I said, there's always people out there to help and kind of help guide that conversation who, like I said, if you're, a manufacturing company, if you're a bank company, maybe this is not, the world that you live in every day. Have somebody come in and give you, some thoughts before you even jump into it, that can give you kind of precursor. Like we do that a lot. So just, help us understand some general focuses of your business, your top priorities, and we'll see where or if there is a fit. I know we are always very honest about, the if there is something, because nobody wants or has the funds or time with their people to be able to do jobs just to be doing jobs. So, all right. So we are at, and we kind of actually had a probably 20-minute time limit on this, but we're at 30 minutes. I appreciate everybody that came and thankful for all the comments and everybody who said hi back to you guys. I'm excited about this. But one of the things, again, that Dinesh and I talked about, and we'll look at this for a future one, was being able to kind of go online and find some of the questions that are out there, in the, I guess, the ecosystem, the internet system, whatever we want to call it, that are some of the most common ones, and address some of those as well. I think we'll do some of that just because we want to hear from not just our own point of view and what things, but really talk about things from what everybody else out there. Some of the other things that we're going to be doing, some of the other topics we're going to have coming forward are going to be in line with how do you understand, as Dinesh mentioned, he talked about understanding what the outcomes are. How do you understand, and create outcome-based projects? How do you understand what the return on investment is for these? How do you calculate that? How do you really concentrate on the value, which is, again, one of my pet peeves is the value of projects that we're doing. So we'll be doing some of that. We'll have some other conversations around other subjects that are all in this area, but very excited to continue to have this. Please reach out, LinkedIn. Dinesh and I are both on there. My title is not Amtech's Data Nerd Evangelist. That's one I created for myself. But feel free to reach out to us. We're on there. We'd love to hear your comments, questions, things that you guys are doing that you guys may want to hear us talk about, or just have a conversation about in general. So thanks for everybody who came today, and look forward to continue the conversation, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
See you guys.